in preparation for another wonderful day. Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to be reading from the Shrimad Bhagavatam, conversation between Manu and Kardama, and it is the Canto 3, chapter 21, text 17. Canto 3, chapter 21, text 17. Lokamscha lokanugatam Shumscha Itwa Sritas Te Charanatapatram Parasparam Twadgunavada Siddhu Purusha Nirapita Deha Dharmaha. So I'm just going to read the line by line. Lokamscha lokanagutan pushumscha nagutan putuscha Itwa Shritaste Charanatapatram Parasparam Twadgunavada Siddhu Piyusha Nirapita Deha Dharmaha Lokan, worldly affairs. Cha, and Loka Anugatan, the followers of worldly affairs, Pashun, beastly, Cha, and Hitwa, having given up, Shritaha, taken shelter, Te, your, Charana, of lotus feet, Atapatram, the umbrella, Parasparam, with one another, Twat, your, Guna, of quality, Vada, by discussion, Siddhu, intoxicating, Piyusha, by the nectar, Nirapita, extinguished, Deha Dharmaha, the primary necessities of the body. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Sri Swami Prabhupada. However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of these affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities and discussions with one another, can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body. Translation, please repeat. However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of these affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities in discussions with one another, can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. After describing the necessity of married life, Kardama Muni asserts that marriage and other social affairs are stereotyped regulations for persons who are addicted to material sense enjoyment. The principles of life, of animal life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, are actually necessities of the body. But those who engage in transcendental Krishna consciousness, giving up all these stereotyped activities of this material world, are freed from social conventions. Conditioned souls are under the spell of material energy, or eternal time, past, present, and future. But as soon as one engages in Krishna consciousness, he transcends the limits of past and present and becomes situated in the eternal activities of the soul. One has to act in terms of the Vedic injunctions in order to enjoy material life. But those who have taken to the devotional service of the Lord are not afraid of the regulations of this material world. Such devotees do not care for the conventions of material activities. They boldly take to that shelter, which is like an umbrella against the sun of repeated birth and death. Constant transmigration of the soul from one body to another is the cause of suffering in material existence. This conditional life in material existence is called samsara. One may perform good work and take his birth in a very nice material condition, but the process under which birth and death take place is like a terrible fire. Sri Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, in his prayer to the spiritual master, has described this. Samsara, or the repetition of birth and death, is compared to a forest fire. A forest fire takes place automatically, without anyone's endeavor, by the friction of dried wood, and no fire department or sympathetic person can extinguish it. The raging forest fire can be extinguished only when there is constant downpour of water from a cloud. The cloud is compared to the mercy of the spiritual master. By the grace of the spiritual master, the cloud of the mercy of the personality of Godhead is brought in, and then only when the rains of Krishna consciousness fall can the fire of material existence be extinguished. This is also explained here. In order to find freedom from the stereotyped conditional life of material existence, one has to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not in the manner in which the impersonalists indulge, but in devotional service, chanting, and hearing of the activities of the Lord. Only then can one be freed from the actions and reactions of material existence. It is recommended here that one should give up the conditional life of this material world and the association of so-called civilized human beings who are simply following in a polished way the same stereotyped principles of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord is described here as Twadguna Vara Siddhu. Only by drinking the nectar of chanting and hearing the pastimes of the Lord can one forget the intoxication of material existence. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Will someone look up the word stereotype for us? Om Anjana Timirandasya Janjana Shalakasya Chakshura Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Kadavayam Dadanti Swampadantikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapti Kanchana Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwambe Sute Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripasindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this text is very instructive for us, and particularly because we as Vaishnavas are endeavoring not to live the stereotypical life. And we are endeavoring to live a life of devotion to the Lord. We are endeavoring to drink the intoxicating nectar of the qualities and activities of the Lord in discussion with others. And in particular, at this couples retreat, Hare Krishna, we have come to dive more deeply into this concept of how to have marriage life that is an offering to Krishna and that is not stereotypical. In this case, we have Kardama Muni, and he's a pure devotee. And he asked the Lord for a wife. Now, that's kind of unusual in one sense, because in general, pure devotees, they don't ask the Lord for anything, quote unquote, a material. But that should give us a hint that because Kardama Muni is such a self-realized soul, he's not asking for anything material. He has a service to do on behalf of the Lord, and he needs assistance to do that service. And he's intelligent enough to know that I shouldn't pray to Goddess Uma or Lord Brahma or any demigod. I should ask the Lord for whatever I need to do my service. And so with that in mind, he prays to the Lord for a wife. And this is very instructive for us because, again, we are endeavoring not to have a stereotypical Griha-mating marriage life. So who looked up the word stereotype for me? Sonia, can you speak loudly and tell us?
Okay, stereotype. A widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing.
Okay, so it's a widely held idea. It's usually oversimplified, very generalized idea. So in general, thank you very much, Sonia. When we think of marriage in the material world, it's two people coming together to pursue materialistic goals. I have something you need, you have something I need, and we're going to come together like that. Or you fulfill my desires, I fulfill your desires. So this is the idea of marriage. But in a Krishna conscious paradigm or Krishna conscious view, we are wanting to have a marriage that is not stereotypical. And we're wanting to have a marriage based on, as we talked about, the Trinad-Api qualities: tolerance, respect, acceptance, appreciation, pridelessness, purity, intelligence. So these are kind of very rare qualities, especially in the Kali Yuga age, and how to develop those qualities and become non-stereotypical and become lovers of God is our challenge. As devotees and as spouses, that's our challenge. Prabhupada said there's a desire in all of us to love and be loved. And that's really the essential nature of the soul, this desire to love and be loved, because we're ultimately parts of God, and God is love, and God loves, and he gets that reciprocation back from Radharani and all of his millions and billions and trillions of energies that reciprocate. And I was thinking this morning, what is love? Because if we're to have a non-stereotypical marriage, we need to be really, really cognizant and aware of what is the actual love. Like Krishna, we're together as husband and wife, and we're together to do a service, and we're together to realize love of God. So what is that? And unconditional love is what we all aspire to. And I was thinking today, so unconditional love means I love you whether you're pretty or ugly. I love you whether you're good or bad. I love you when you do something stupid and when you do something nice. I love you when you're old and when you're young. I love you. If you do even a criminal act, I love you. So this love is unwavering, it's unchanging. And Prabhupada says really only Krishna has that kind of love. But he says the closest thing to that kind of love in our world is a mother's love. And you know, you think about a lot of us in this room are mothers. And our child can do practically anything. We're not going to stop loving them and wishing them well and hoping the best for them. You know, they can get on our last nerve. They can make us cry, but we are still going to love them. So my understanding of when Prabhupada asked us to have Krishna conscious marriages, Grihastha marriages, is that he wanted us to dip into this kind of love. And it's not an ordinary thing. And so that calls for us to have to be a little extraordinary in our dealings and our endeavors. And so how do we do that? Because we come with our own baggage and our own wounds and our own pains and our own, vulnerabilities. And now we're asking, we're being asked to trust one another, to accept somebody fully. So first of all, this text gives us a little hint. It says, we drink in the intoxicating nectar of the qualities and activities of the Lord in discussions with one another. So this idea of community sharing or community interaction or involvement shows us where one of our resources are. And that's why we do these kind of retreats, because we're in discussions with one another how to practically apply Krishna conscious marriage principles. How do you do that? How do you tolerate someone who really is doing something that you really don't care for and don't like? How do you do that? And so we're asked to go deeper inside our hearts and to reflect the love that God has for us with our mate. That's what we're asked to do. Does Krishna have any conditions on his love for us? No. Never has, never will. He's been with us through lifetime after lifetime, through our turning our backs on him, through our cursing him, through our doing all kinds of things. He never left us. And the ultimate idea of marriage life is to reflect that kind of love. So in general, what you want to do, we want to choose a partner that we want to have some preparation for that in the beginning. So we want to choose someone that we think we can do that with. And once we make those vows, to love each other and through death and through all kinds of ups and downs and ins and outs, once we make those vows, then we want to pray to ask the Lord to open our hearts so that we can reflect his love for us on our spouse. That's to become instruments of Krishna's love. So here was Krsnanandini. He asked the Lord for a spouse. And the Lord told him, when he was praying to the Lord said, I know what you want. And I've already prepared it. And I would say to you all that the Lord has already given us the spouse that we need to help us on our journey. He knew what we wanted. He knew what we needed. And sometimes you might say, wow, Krishna, did you make a mistake? Is this the one for me? Sometimes it seems like that, right? But Krishna, knowing ahead of time whatever we needed to help us become purified, gave us this particular spouse. And we have to appreciate it like that. We have to ask Krishna questions. Okay, well, Lord, you gave me this spouse. Now, what do I do with them? We ask them that. I pray a lot of times with my husband. I say, Krishna, now what should I say next? Or what should I do next? This is the idea that Krishna knows us so well that he has shaped everything we need to help us make the ultimate progress. See, we might make a choice different from Krishna. We might choose something that looks good and feels good. And that's okay. In general, Krishna has given us all good-looking spouses, so we're okay with that. But Krishna knows exactly what we need to grow. And he has given us that mate that will help us grow. And the more we appreciate that, and the more we open ourselves to that understanding, the more quickly we'll make progress in the spiritual path. So this idea of a Trinad-Api marriage is very, very important because this is definitely not the stereotype of the marriage in the world. You do not talk about being tolerant and accepting and that's not the thing. It's you marry somebody that can do something for you, and when they can't do it anymore, you let them go. But this is not a marriage that is good for community life. And we see that so much in all the painful suffering. So our idea is to appreciate each other and try to see where we can be the instrument of Krishna's love. That's the whole point. How can I? See, we have this really hard thing that we do in our lives, and that is, we say, well, if my spouse would do this different, or if my spouse would change, or if my spouse would, then, everything would be better. But the moment that we accept responsibility, as Carmen so nicely put it, for our own well-being and our own life, and say that it's my responsibility for the well-being and the health of my life and my marriage. If everybody thinks like that, if each person in the marriage thinks like that, then just think what a healthy situation that will be. A good marriage is formed when two healthy people work together, and two whole people work together and create this synergy of love and compassion. So we have an onus on us because Prabhupada came and made so many sacrifices. He looked out to see what good could be done in the world, and he gave us the books, and he gave us each other, and he gave us the pattern and the standard. And we just simply have to plug into it and accept the responsibility for it. So by chanting Hare Krishna really with a sincere heart and just begging and pleading the Lord to open us up as his instruments, by appreciating what we have and not doing so much lamentation about what we don't have, then we can be a lot cleared to have the kind of marriage that would be an offering to the Lord. And the association of devotees is very helpful. Making your marriage a priority is very helpful. A lot of times we think, well, so many other things are important and this can be last. But if your unit as husband and wife is healthy and vibrant and strong, then the way you affect everything around you, your children, your community, your neighborhood, will be very, very strongly impacted. So it is very important that our marriages become solid and strong and healthy. And whatever we take to do that is part of our devotional service to God. Any thoughts on this so far? Any questions, thoughts, comments?
I think,
How do you?
you said mother's love is unconditional. I think it could be father's love also. Because, there have been instances, I remember, I think it was maybe 10 years ago or something, and maybe we just had our first child. There was a lady in Texas that was severely depressed, and they had 5 children. And she drowned all 5 of them in her own bathtub in the house. And then they found out that the stress of being a mother can be so great and so on and so forth. But they can react in such a...
So you're saying that mothers may not always...
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you, especially in Kali Yuga. Anyway, that wasn't my quote, that was Prabhupada's quote. He said a mother's love is the closest to God's love. In other words, a healthy mother, and a mother that's emotionally healthy. And this is not to say that a father can't love his children, and we have many instances where fathers had. But just as an example to show that here's someone who'll go to the last mile without giving up. In general, you'll find mothers that do that, but there are also fathers who do that. Yeah, so we're in agreement with that. Anyone else want to make a rule?
I really appreciated your comment about reflecting the love of God and praying to be able to reflect it, because I think sometimes, it can feel very, stuck or discouraged, and it's like, I just can't do this. And to hear that reminds me that it's not about me doing anything. It's about me praying to be able to channel
Yes.
God's love. And it almost takes the burden off.
Yes.
In one sense.
Yes.
So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Gopika. That's exactly right. And that carries over even in other instances, like if you're as a parent. And you all know I have 10 children, and I have to say, you know, Krishna somehow puts the attachment of the children on the parents, mother and father, especially a conscientious father. And it's really hard to, you know, but when you come to the conclusion, I can't really protect my children. Really, I mean, I'm just a tiny little insect. There's so many forces and factors out there that I have to just say, Krishna, I'm just your instrument. You protect your own children, you know, like that. So to understand that, how do we become that instrument to let Krishna flow through us and love through us? You know, that's the thing. When you think of your body, like we're all parts of Krishna's body, and so that whole energy of love is just flowing. And when we get in that position where we're not being an impediment, we're letting it just flow through, then that becomes, it enhances our life, our spouse's life, and everybody around us. So, yeah, thank you.
Can you explain the difference between attachment and love? Because sometimes those two words are often confused.
Yes, okay.
Especially with spouse or with children.
Colonel, will you?
Itching.
You're attached to your hair, Colonel. Itching it. I'm scratching it. No, yeah, that's a good question. Attachment and love. Before I venture my response, would anybody care to share something? What do you think? What do you think is the difference between attachment and love? Yashoda?
Attachment could be holding on to someone or something because they are important to me and they fulfill my needs. Of course, there could be spiritual attachment,
Right,
which is different.
right.
But in this case, difference between attachment and love. And love is realizing that I genuinely care for this person, not just because they are, you know, useful to me or I, you know, love them in some way, but because they really are, they belong to Krishna, and I'm a caretaker and I'm a servant of this person who's been given to me, whether it's a child or a spouse.
Very good. So Yashoda Dula is saying that if you love means that I genuinely am a well-wisher for this person, understanding that they belong to God, and not necessarily that I need or want something from them. Okay, anybody else?
I actually have a question, like based on that, because I felt I agree. I think in my head I was thinking that there was more of like a detachment when it comes to love. Like it's a little bit more objective, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily true.
Okay, so you're saying that you have a little confusion going on because you thought love meant more detachment.
Like because it's so pervasive across like a general, it's like this general understanding that because everyone, you might not have a personal relationship with someone, I think that's where like the attachment comes, like personal relationship, you feel more attached to them. Then if you don't have a personal relationship, you still want to exhibit love, but it's more like, you know, there's more like a detached emotionally, it's more like the understanding, like cognitively that, okay, that person is a part and parcel of Krishna, so that's why I love them. It's more like
So love, anybody else want to say anything else? Prabhu?
I just want to say something that Canto just whispered to me. It's just a succinct way of saying what Yashoda was saying, that attachment is for me, love is for you.
Yes, very good. That's a simple way. Love means being the well-wisher of a person in spite of all situations and circumstances. Whether it's a bit, you know, whether you get something from it or not. And it's also, love means being able to do the needful. Like sometimes if you're attached, you can't do what you need to do because you're afraid you might lose something or you're afraid you might not get something. But love means being able to do what you need to do for the betterment of the person or the well-wisher. It's a really special thing, and this is why Prabhupada says that in our material world, love doesn't exist. But remember, as non-stereotypical beings, we can actually experience love because we experience it on the spiritual plane. So we're in this world, but not of this world when we have that consciousness. So attachment means that, you know, I think something belongs to me or has some something that I should get for it, or I don't want to do. Let's say if I'm attached to my children, then I may not be able to do tough love for them, or I may overextend when they need to have a little more firmness. But if I'm loving them, I will do the needful. I may be strict, still love them, but I won't be so weak to my feelings and whatnot like that. So neither attachment nor detachment, because for a devotee, detachment isn't good either. I mean, you know, we have to be detached to a certain extent. In other words, like I'm not going to be accumulating money and wealth, all this, just for my personal use. But Prabhupada says if you're detached in the wrong consciousness, you're like a crazy person, because nothing belonged to you in the first place. So what do you have to be detached from? A crazy person may say, you know, come in this room and say, I'm going to give up all these tables and all of this jewelry and everything. And we'll look at him like, what? Yeah, it didn't belong to you anyway. So what does he have to give up? So for the person who knows that everything belongs to God, and I'm just an instrument of His love, then I utilize things in His service like that. I engage things in His service. I engage people in His service. When you love, you're also willing to make sacrifices. That's another sign. Sometimes when you attach, you'll make sacrifice, but it's so you can get some emotional or material benefit out of it. But when you love, you make sacrifices without any expectation of benefit.
Thank you so much for your class, and I'm just really appreciating Srila Prabhupada's purports, because
Yes.
they always hit it.
Yes.
This. So in that purport, Prabhupada was talking about social convention.
Mhm.
You spoke about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my experience with my own self and with others that are around, I see that attachment usually relates to our social conventions, the things that we should socially are conditioned to, and that love can take a form, start taking form when, as Prabhupada says in the purport, when there are some higher kind of understanding, for example, the spiritual master being a part of our lives and actually directing us. That's Prabhupada speaking in that purport. I was writing some of the things as you read the purport. That the connection with the spiritual master gives the freedom actually from material conditioning, which is connected to our social conventions. And so then we start experiencing love. So for me, the distinction is to what degree am I attached to the social conditionings that I may have had from this life and also previous lives? And to what degree am I connected to how consciously am I applying Krishna conscious principles in my life? Because that will determine my degree of being able to love or not love.
Very good. Thank you, Mamata.
And that's your purpose.
Yes, from the purport. There was a couple, and somehow the husband had gotten somewhat entangled with another lady, and it was a very difficult time, as you can imagine. And so the wife said to the husband, she said, you know, if you're happy with this other lady, and if it's God's will, then I surrender. And she actually went and arranged a meeting between the husband, the other lady, and herself. And she said that. And she offered her blessings. And the husband and the other lady were really astounded, you know, but they could feel her sincerity. Like, I genuinely love you and I want what the Lord wants for you. You know, I can't be in a two-wife marriage, but if you feel that this lady is better for your growth and whatever, then go with my blessings, like that. So that was really an instance of love, you know, rather than attachment. And she loved her husband, and she had cried and everything when she, you know, shared this with us, but that was the thing, you know. And love is a much deeper sentiment than any of us have an awareness of. And how we realize this love is by really realizing more and more Krishna's love for us and our love for Krishna, and then opening ourselves to be that instrument of that love. And it's such a deep and all-encompassing, purifying thing. Love is healing. Love is supportive. Love is trusting. Love is accepting. You know, in the Bible, there's a list of what charity is and I love it because it just means love. So when we're asking you all to have a Trinad-Api marriage, we're asking you all to do something a little extraordinary, and ourselves as well. To look at your spouse every day and say, how can I be a reflection of Krishna's love to you? To look at your spouse every day and say, how can I show you what trust is? To look at your spouse every day and say, how can I forgive you like Krishna has forgiven me? To look at your spouse every day and say, how can I work together with you so that we can be instruments to usher in a new era of love and peace on this earth. This is what we're asking of ourselves and of you in this retreat. So all of these workshops that we're doing, all of our prayers for you, is that we want this special group of devotees, of couples, of believers in God who are not stereotypical, go beyond the social conventions to be loving servants one to another and of God. And we pray for Krishna all the time for help because he wants to help us. And he knows our weaknesses and our, you know. Yes, Sri Radhika.
I was reflecting on this as well. I was thinking that attachment and detachment in certain degree is necessary for a couple because it has to be expressed in a form of responsibility. And when it's balanced, it's a form of love. But if it's unbalanced, attachment can be a form of possession, of control, and detachment can be too much of detachment. It can be projected in a form of carelessness and also in a sense of control. You know, like, I don't care, you know, you don't matter to me that much as my senses are satisfied, you know, whatever. So that's my understanding.
That's a very good understanding, Sri Radhika. And actually, you've articulated that in the spiritual world, everything exists, but in its pure form. So even attachment is in the spiritual world, but it's spiritual attachment. Even detachment is in the spiritual world, but it's spiritual detachment. And the acharyas spend so much time explaining all these different concepts because it really, at a certain point, the purification of the heart has to be there in order to appreciate. But they say the same thing over and over and over in different ways, in different scriptures and in different examples. In marriage life, there's some need for spiritual attachment because that means responsibility. I'm responsible for my spouse, I'm responsible for my children. But you do it in a consciousness where you know you're doing this as a service for Krishna. And because you're doing it as a service for Krishna, you do the best. I take the best care of my spouse. I take the best care of my children. I'm doing this for Krishna. Love personified. Like that. Prabhu?
When I read this purport in this, and I heard your wonderful class, I remember a class I attended about a month and a half ago in England with Krsnanandini Swami, and it's from the 13th chapter, 10th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Mm-hmm. So it's a long purport, but can I read like 3 or 4 sentences that are very pertinent to this?
Yes.
So, you know, in this you talked about how do we not have a stereotypical relationship,
yes,
or a stereotypical family life.
Yes.
And this purport specifically talks about that.
Okay.
As for detachment from children, wife and home, it is not meant that one should have no feeling for these. They are natural objects of affection. But when they are not favorable to spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. The best process for making the home pleasant is Krishna consciousness. If one is in full Krishna consciousness, he can make his home very happy because this process of Krishna consciousness is very easy. One need only chant, and now Prabhupada gives 4 things to do in family life which will make your family life non-stereotypical or perfect, in the words of that particular purport. One need only chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare. Accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Have some discussion on books like Bhagavad Gita and Shrimad Bhagavatam, and engage oneself in deity worship. These 4 things will make one happy. One should train the members of his family in this way. The family members can sit down morning and evening, and Maharaj spoke about this, like twice a day in family life. The family members can sit down morning and evening and chant together Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If one can mold his family life in this way to develop Krishna consciousness, following these 4 principles, then there is no need to change from family life to renounced life.
Very good. Awesome. So the 4 principles are chanting Hare Krishna, offering your food to Krishna, having some discussion on the scriptures, Krishna consciousness in the morning and evening, and having deity service in the home.
Deities at home.
Yeah.
And doing this morning and evening.
Yeah, very good.
And balancing your life accordingly.
My children came together and gave me a surprise birthday party last December. And they did a skit of their memories from when they were little. And it really, really touched my heart. And in the skit, they showed where we were having class every day. They could be little, they were babies, you know. And it was so nice that they remembered this and some of the other things that we did as family. And funny too, because and then they were saying that sometimes they would get annoyed as they got older, and we have to have class. But they were saying how that was so helpful to them now that they're adults. The fact that we did that daily, regularly, and it's so much in their hearts like that. So, a simple formula, yes.
What was that?
That for Bhagavad Gita?
13th chapter, 10th verse.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we want to implore you all to really pray to Krishna that we have these non-stereotypical marriages based on trust and respect, non-violence, acceptance, pridelessness, appreciation, purity, devotion. I love out devotion, which is very important. And that word devotion means devoted to each other and to Krishna. Like you said, these are natural means of affection. We should be affectionate to our family members. And then intelligence. It takes intelligence to know how to do these things. And when we're not intelligent enough, which is often my case, I just pray and I beg Krishna, help me. I'm not that intelligent. What to do, like that. And so the Lord helps. So, unless there are any other questions or comments, we'll stop. Oh, Mata?
So mine isn't as elevated conversation as you all shared, but I didn't really want to go back to it, but when you think of stereotypes, I have this one person, I realize I'll say something like, oh, I just have to clear stuff out of my husband's car. And this person in my life, she just starts complaining about her husband. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking this is such a stereotype. So now I just make sure I don't go into those spaces. Mm-hmm. And when Janardhan and I first got married and we, were going to the temple together, where we had lived for years, and he would tell me when people ask you how you're doing, tell them amazing, excellent. And I have to say, it was the best advice he gave me. And when I tell people I'm doing better than ever, they're just so taken back instead of, it's.
Woe was me.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know how bad I got it.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't even think with this woman that I wasn't complaining about my husband, oh, I'm just clearing out his car first, I'll be right with you or something. And then she just said, my husband, blah, 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 my husband. And I see that stereotype of complaining of the husband is
Yes.
like an easy
Yes.
stereotype.
It's a good thing you said that, Krishna Kumari, because we do a lot of workshops and seminars, and so sometimes people will say, they'll make a joke and say, oh, you know marriage is, I said, what? I always stop and say, no, I know marriage can be good, you know. Well, you know how the husband is. I said, I have a great husband, you know. So taking time to reverse those stereotypes is also important, you know. Don't participate in them and, you know, offer the positive alternative.
Unity through complaining.
Claim the victory. So thank you all very much. And our next,
Well, it says be back here at 9:15. Technically, we start at 9:30, but it's good to be early back.
okay, so now you all can go for lunch, for breakfast. Today's Ekadashi, okay. And be back here at 9:30 if you can, if you will. And help everybody to come back on time. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Our great Krsnanandini Devi.